The wind howled low across the barren plains as if whispering secrets too heavy for daylight, and she stood there with her heart cracked open, staring at the church bells ringing for a wedding that was never hers anymore. Her husband, the man she had loved since girlhood, the man who once promised her forever under the stars, had taken another bride. The celebration echoed down the street with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. But to her, it was nothing more than the sound of betrayal burning in her chest. She felt abandoned, broken, and shamed before the very people who once envied her life. Her white dress, once meant for renewal, now felt like a cruel costume mocking her sorrow. Her tears fell quietly, but her soul screamed louder than the music. She thought she had lost everything until the sound of boots crunching gravel made her turn. There he was, the cowboy with eyes like storm clouds and a jaw set with fire, a man feared by some, respected by many, but understood by none. He stood tall, his weathered hat shadowing the fury simmering in his gaze. He didn't speak at first. He only looked at her, at the shattered pieces of the woman she was, and then at the church where betrayal sat dressed in lace. His voice, deep and steady, cut through the noise like a blade. "If he's taken another bride," the cowboy said, "then I'll take his greatest loss." Her breath caught in her throat, her heart stumbling as those words wrapped around her like armor. She didn't know whether to fear him or to cling to him, but for the first time since her world fell apart, she felt seen, defended, and worth fighting for. The cowboy stepped closer, his presence both dangerous and safe, his hand brushing away the tear that clung stubbornly to her cheek. He wasn't talking about revenge and blood, not in the way her husband might fear. He was speaking about something deeper, a promise that she was worth more than betrayal could ever measure. "He'll never know what he threw away," the cowboy murmured, his eyes burning into hers. "But I'll make sure the world does." She trembled, torn between the wreckage of her past and the wildfire of the future, flickering before her. She remembered how her husband once used to fight for her, how he used to hold her close like she was treasure. But that man no longer existed. In his place was a coward who chose convenience, pride, or maybe greed over love. But this cowboy standing before her, he had nothing to gain and everything to lose by claiming her, and yet he did it without hesitation. The night deepened, the stars beginning to flicker awake above the canyon horizon, and she realized that destiny sometimes comes wrapped in the ashes of what you think you've lost. She let out a trembling breath, her fingers brushing against his calloused hand, and for the first time she didn't feel broken anymore. She felt claimed, chosen, alive. And behind them the bells rang on, but their music no longer mattered. The world of betrayal and false promises could have its hollow joy, because she had found a fire stronger than the ashes of her grief. The cowboy turned his head toward the celebration, his voice sharp with finality. "He may have taken another bride," he growled, "but tonight, he'll sleep knowing he lost the only woman who ever truly mattered." And with that, he led her away, his arms strong and steady around her shoulders, carrying her not like a prize but like a queen who deserved to be cherished. The desert wind rose high as if it, too, approved of her choosing strength over sorrow, fire over ashes. Her story wasn't ending, it was just beginning. And this time it would be written in bold ink across the sky. So if this story touched your heart, if you believe love can rise from betrayal and that strength is born from loss, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Because more powerful stories like this, filled with heartbreak, courage, and the fire of redemption, are waiting just for you. Don't miss the next one. Join us and let's keep these tales alive together. The morning after felt heavy with silence, the kind that lingers after storms when the land is wet but the sky is dry, and she sat on the porch of the small cabin the cowboy had brought her to, staring out at the endless stretch of desert. Her heart still carried scars of betrayal, but something about the way he had looked at her the night before kept replaying in her mind, like a song she couldn't silence. He moved about the cabin with quiet strength, tending the fire, brewing coffee, and fixing a simple meal, not saying much but speaking volumes through every action. Unlike her husband, who used words like weapons and promises like chains, this cowboy built trust in silence, in the way his hands were steady, in the way he never looked at her as though she was broken. She felt the ache of loss but also the stirring of something unfamiliar, something almost frightening, hope. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and certain, carrying the weight of a man who had lived through battles most couldn't imagine. "The world will tell you you've been left behind," he said, eyes fixed on the horizon, "but sometimes being left is the only way to be found." She shivered, not from cold, but from the truth in his words. She wanted to argue, to cling to the anger that still burned. But sitting there watching him, she realized anger wasn't what she needed, it was strength. And strength was what he offered. The desert sun began to rise, painting the canyons gold. And for the first time since her husband's betrayal, she smiled, small and fragile but real. The cowboy noticed but said nothing. Only gave a faint nod as if to say he'd been waiting for that moment. She knew there would be whispers, judgment, and enemies who would call her foolish. But she also knew that this new chapter of her life wasn't about them, it was about reclaiming her worth. She watched him tie his hat down against the wind and lead his horse from the stable,